In spite of the danger, my buddies Lloyd, Bob, Roland, and I decided to attempt an escape. We were successful and been traveling together several days when we had to go through a town. There was no light anywhere since everyone used blackout curtains. It was late enough that we figured almost everyone would be asleep. We crept along slowly with about 10 feet between each member of the team. All at once I was startled by a voice in the darkness. As I instinctively turned to look, a door opened from the house on my left. The light from inside shined on me, and it was such an unexpected contrast from the darkness that it blinded me temporarily. I stood there like a deer caught in headlights, unable to move or to do anything. Suddenly, a German soldier came striding out of the house, straight for me, followed by a woman. Fortunately, the field of light was restricted enough so they could only see me, giving my three partners a chance to take cover. As the soldier got closer, his shadow shielded my eyes enough that I could see a huge German tank parked next to the house. I could see the excited look in his eyes. I just stood there transfixed, unable to move or to even make a sound. I didn't know whether to run, put my hands up, or fall to my knees and beg for mercy. So I just stood there. As he reached me, he shouted something unintelligible to me in German. Before I could think of what to do, I was startled beyond words to hear myself respond with a calm, confident German phrase that obviously was appropriate to what he'd asked me. He then replied to whatever I'd said with an almost cheerful, "Ja, ja, ja," and put his arm around the woman, turned his back to me, and went back into the house and closed the door. I was so astonished and frightened that I just stood there with my mouth hanging open. My buddies had seen and heard the whole thing, and when I didn't move, they came out and grabbed me and pulled me behind a nearby outbuilding where we could hide. The whole encounter had taken just a few seconds, but it was absolutely unbelievable. The first thing my buddies asked was, "What on earth did he say to you, and what did you say when you talked back to him?" I told them that I had no idea what either he or I said since I couldn't speak German. I do know that I didn't use any of the few German words that I'd learned in the POW camp, like hello, sir, yes sir, no sir. Even if I had, my accent would have been so terrible that a German would have recognized me as a foreigner immediately. Yet whatever I had said satisfied him. All of us stood there marveling in disbelief of what had just happened. I was standing fully exposed to the soldier, with my scraggy beard, tattered clothes, with no coat, and bright white letters painted on my trousers and shirt indicating that I was a POW. It was just impossible that he didn't recognize me as an escaped prisoner. Instead of shooting me or calling for help, though, he looked straight at me, spoke to me in his native language, listened to my response in a foreign language that I have never spoken before or since, and accepted my answer as legitimate. Even if the guard hadn't figured it out, there was the woman who also stared at me and heard the words that passed between us. Why didn't either of them figure out what was going on? All of this was settled in my mind. I felt a burning in my heart that told me that I had been blessed once again, and that the Holy Ghost had interpreted what the German had said to me and put the appropriate words in my mouth to respond. In other words, I had been blessed with the gift of tongues. I don't know what those two Germans saw, but obviously they didn't see the letters on my clothing, even though they would have stood out like a neon sign in the bright light that shone through the door. The Spirit may have also changed what they saw. I think in some unknown way my appearance may have been transformed, so they did not recognize me. I've heard it said that for something to be a miracle, there can be no logical or earthly way to explain it. If that's true, then in this case, I was clearly the beneficiary of a miracle, and it thrilled me to know that God was still watching out for me and that He cared for me.